From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Ilyasah Shabazz, the third daughter of Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz. Ilyasah, which means God is present, is a community organizer, activist, humanitarian, and motivational speaker. She is the author of Growing Up X, The Diary of Malcolm X, and The Boy Who Grew Up to Become Malcolm X. Ms. Shabazz promotes higher education, interfaith dialogue, and building bridges for young leaders around the world. She is the driving force behind the Wake Up Tour, an exclusive youth empowerment program. She is the founder of Malcolm X Enterprises and is a trustee for the Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz Memorial and Educational Center. Without further ado, we would like to welcome Ilyasah Shabazz. And now we'll play the video.
Most of us are at least partially shaped by the events of our youth. Consider the case of Ilyasah Shabazz, daughter of Betty Shabazz and Malcolm X.
My dad said education is our passport to the future.
She's the Director of Public Affairs and Special Events for the city of Mount Vernon. But Ilyasah Shabazz spends much of her time now as a public speaker, often in connection with her book, Growing Up X.
I think for a lot of children, especially of color, there's nothing that really reinforces pride and their heritage. My thing is always to try and empower people.
Obviously, you're a big advocate for equality across the board. Do you want to talk a little bit just about kind of your views on that?
You know, it's just, again, important that one should not be discriminated against based on their sex, creed, or ethnic background. And I think that every child deserves an opportunity to feel good about him or herself. If we look into history, we'll see that there is contribution from each. I'm just very committed to empowering young people.
Step out the front door like a ghost into the fog where no one notices the contrast of white on white. And in between the moon and you, angels get a better view of the crumbling to
Going to see my hero, Winnie Mandela. Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Okay. Mandela. That's who we're going to see. And it is an absolute honor. Beautiful, my God! Beautiful. Whoa. Beautiful. You know, I would tell you that you are really my only living hero. And it's really an honor for me. I have to tell you, a profound experience for me was reading the biography of Winnie Mandela, mind-blowing, and so it was the most endearing and heartfelt moment when Camille and I met her. That was at the That's wonderful. Yes, indeed. And still as beautiful as ever.
Pick up that mantle and run the final mile to total freedom. So the youth have to know that any country, even rich US, without taking care of their children, there is no future. Because the future of every country is its youth. You have to invest everything in the youth of the land if you want a stable future and a future for your own children's children. And what would be the point in any case of leading a useless life, and you know that when yours come to an end, nobody is going to continue that life. Every parent should know that children are a continuation of themselves. So what we were in life and what we are, we should instill in our children. And because they have to be told that they are a continuation of that struggle we fought everywhere in the world. Therefore, I know my children will run the last mile. And that should be the case here. Malcolm knows where he's like, but his children will run the last mile and will carry the mantle to the grave.
I'm here in Mali. I'm here with Malaria No More to help distribute 2.2 million bed nets to the millions of families who are affected by malaria. We're here to help reduce the mortality rate. Malaria is the #1 killer of African children. It's a mosquito that bites mostly young children under the age of 5 and poisons their blood system. It's deadly. It's important to me because I think children all deserve an opportunity to live. They deserve an opportunity to flourish. I think people all around the world should care about children, and especially if we can prevent children from dying when it is preventable.
So I would like to first thank you all for coming. I'm very, very happy to be able to participate in the National Book Festival. I'm so happy that I could write this lovely children's book about Malcolm Little for these beautiful children. As you see, I travel all around the world, and the one thing that we want you to understand, we want all the young children to know that you are truly our future leaders. And we are counting on you to go to school and learn everything that you can possibly learn. When you're in class, and if there's something that you don't understand, you have to make sure that you keep raising your hand. If there are any adults around you, if there's anything that you don't understand, keep raising your hand and ask questions until you do understand. You got that? Great. So this story is about courage, it's about perseverance, it's about compassion, it's about leadership. And so we want you to make sure that you are going to be the best leaders that you possibly can, and that you understand equality and all of the great things that this little boy Malcolm came to understand as a child. And he learned these things by his parents, his mother and his dad. And so Malcolm Little is written, you see the cover of this book, it's a young, impressionable child, and it says that all of us start off as children, and whomever we are today, it's because of what the adults around us taught us. And so it's our responsibility as all the big, beautiful adults, it looks like most of you in here are about 15 or 16 years old, and it's our responsibility as the bigger adults to make sure that we're teaching our children very well so that they can go off to be great and do wonderful things like Malcolm X did. My favorite people in the world are the children. I have one excerpt that I'd like to read about the garden and how Malcolm came to be all that he could. And so we have a picture here of Malcolm, young Malcolm in the garden with his mom. And I have to say that his dad was the president of the Marcus Garvey movement in the 1920s. His mother was the National Recording Secretary, and she was the one who instilled the desire, the passion for learning, the passion for education. And just as Malcolm found inspiration from his father's speeches at church, he learned some unexpected lessons from his mother's garden at home. For Malcolm, the enchanted garden of Louise Norton Little was an entire world of its own, where even the most sluggish of ladybugs and the fastest scurrying ants were all equally treated like esteemed and welcome guests at a family Sunday brunch. Here, savvy spiders busily crocheted their delicate webs along the foliage, allowing the strong Midwestern sunshine to cast pretty patterned shadows on the soft earth below. Geraniums dotted the field in the distance with peppy pops of pink and purple as the crisp blue sky and lush green fields connected somewhere far out in the horizon. In the sacred garden, beetles hustled about like harried businessmen on their way to important meetings, while snails lolled leisurely as if they were on some kind of half-speed permanent vacation. Here, Louise taught her children to love every living creature, equally, large or small, pretty or not so pretty, busy or still, fast or slow, insect or plant. The garden was a testament to the true and unconditional brotherhood from the earth on up to the sky, a daily lesson in acceptance and equality. Each living creature had a story, a purpose, a reason for being, and a beauty of its own. Through the majestic trees in the garden, Malcolm would also learn about the importance of roots, nature's anchors, the base of every living creature, and through the outspread wings of the chirping birds above, he began to see the power of possibility. And so we just want to make sure that all of our children understand if you persevere, if you have that courage, you keep trying, that you can go out and do these great things that all of the adults around you do. And so we understand the foundation that was provided by Malcolm from his mother and his father, and the fun that he had with his children, with his brothers and sisters, his siblings, that he was able to go out and become this great international political strategist, okay? So I want to make sure that I do have some time for some questions. We have 10 minutes for questions, and there are 2 mics in the center of the aisle. If you would like to come up and ask any questions, I'm happy to entertain them. How many of you heard of Malcolm X? Very good. Yes, what's your question? What's your question? Is there a microphone for him?
She has it right here.
Okay, there's a young boy right here who wanted to ask a question. Okay, let's see.
How many books have you written?
Okay, my first book was Growing Up X, and that's a coming-of-age memoir that I wrote after my mother passed away. Before my mother passed away, I was a little introverted. You know, I didn't go out into the public a lot, you know, to do public speaking. But after my mother passed away, I wanted to make sure that I shared the story of Malcolm and Betty to inspire other children and young people. So I wrote that book in 2002. My second book is Growing Up X, which, well, actually that is my second book is Malcolm Little, which is the children's illustration book, which just came out in January. And in January of 2015, I have another book that's coming on Candlewick Press, which is simply entitled X, and that's a young adult version of Malcolm.
Okay, and I have more or less a follow-up question.
Yes, ma'am.
What's your favorite book that you've written?
Say that again?
What's your favorite book that you've written?
My favorite book is Malcolm Little because my favorite people are the children. You know, and I want you all to understand that the roles you will play, that one day you are going to be the adults that you look up to. And so you have to make sure that you learn every single thing that you possibly can, so when the other children start asking you questions, you have the best answers for them. And that you can make sure that everyone is treated fairly and equally, and that they know that they are worthy of self-love. And that is the most important thing. Yes, young man, right here. Yes. You studied Malcolm X? Very good, very good. Yes, young lady, right here. Very good. What inspired me to write? You all. I love children. I love children, and I wanted to make sure that you could look in a book and that you can see people who look like you, and you could feel good about these people, and you would know your role as young children, your role to give back Your role to be kind, your role to learn as much as you possibly can. Yes. Why did I start writing books? Oh, when? I started writing, well, actually, I wrote books when I was as young as you. I used to write stories when I was a little girl as a hobby. And I just had a passion and joy and fun writing stories and creating stories and drawing pictures and doing all of those great things. But I went to school and I was a biology major. And then I went and got a master's in education. So you see the connection. My first book was Growing Up X, and I wrote that in 2002. Yes?
What are all your books about?
Oh, very good question. My books are about all of the things that little boys and little girls like. They're about equality. It's about respecting the earth, respecting the grass and the trees, making sure you don't pollute. It's about investing in yourself and knowing that you're worthy of a quality education, the best education that you can have. It's about all of the things that make you feel good about yourself so that you know that you are worthy of self-love. You know, it's about all of those great things that empower and motivate us to do better and to feel good about ourselves. So if we feel good about ourselves, then we're going to treat our neighbors, all the other little boys and girls well, right? Then there's no time for any nonsense. Yes.
How much books did you read?
How many words can I read? How many books did I write? Oh my goodness, I read so many books. And the more books you read, the bigger you get, the happier you get. You get to eat more food. You get to do all of the things that you love the most. You just have to read as many books that you possibly can, and even you will become very, very smart like your parents. Yes.
Do you like insects?
I love insects. Oh, yeah. Oh.
This is my first
time. Oh, we
time.
still have time. Should I read one more section? Okay, just one more quick section. Yes, young lady. Oh, gosh, have I ever touched a slug? You mean those little slimy things that are gooey and sticky? You did? Did you like the feeling of it? Wow, that's pretty cool. Here's another section about Malcolm going fishing. On sunny afternoons after school, when the air was still warm from the day and the chores were done, Malcolm loved to go fishing with his friend Big Boy. The two of them would stand over the stream like a pair of kings surveying their empire. They stood quietly, eagerly, waiting for their fishing lines to move, for even just a hint of a ripple in the stillness of that glistening water. Sometimes they'd stand there for hours watching the stream as if nothing else mattered. They would scratch their heads and exchange looks that said, "What could we possibly be doing wrong?" Malcolm and Big Boy knew that if they wanted results, they were going to have to come up with a clever way of catching the fish. What were they not thinking of? Malcolm would scratch his head, squinting through the sunshine, and mull it over with Big Boy, both of them trying to come up with a better way to attract the fish. Then one day on the bridge, while the lines were still, Malcolm felt a rumble in his belly. The thought of the delicious supper that was waiting for him at home crept into his mind. Freshly baked buttery biscuits, herb-roasted chicken, vegetables from the garden, and a homemade apple pie with ice cream, caramel, chocolate, and strawberries. Malcolm imagined the aromas that would fill the little house at dusk, and then suddenly it hit him. They needed better bait. Just like the aromas of dinner brought him and his siblings running to the table, Malcolm and Big Boy needed to lure the fish to come swimming to their lines. Their plastic earthworms obviously weren't cutting it. The next day, just before Malcolm cast his fishing rod into the stream, he pulled a handful of breadcrumbs from his pocket and hurled them into the water, where they landed like pretty drops of cotton candy. Soon, tiny bubbles appeared around the crumbs, and just like the children would come running to the table each night, the fish swam around to see what treasures Malcolm and Big Boy had to offer. From that day on, the boys caught big, beautiful fish. But most importantly, Malcolm learned that observation and effort could combine to create desired results. And so it says that you must persevere, that whatever it is you want in life, you have to have the dream and the vision, and you have to persevere and keep trying and trying until you do it better and better and better. And we know that you guys are the best. We know that you guys rock. We know that you guys rule, and that you are going to be the best leaders for this country. Yes! Now I just have 4 more minutes. Is there another question? Yes, young man. And I will be signing the books downstairs at 4:30, right? 4:30. On the second floor upstairs from 4:30 to 5:30 for 1 full hour. And I have to tell you that it is a very beautiful book. You know, a lot of people didn't understand the values and the foundation that my father had from his parents, the role of his mother, the role of his father that would allow him to go on later in life as a young man, only in his 20s when the world learned of Malcolm X, and killed at 39. But in the 12 short years in the 1960s, during the social climate, that he was able to make such an impact and travel the globe in search of solutions to what would oppress, people. And so he was seeking solutions to the human condition that would do these kinds of things. And so being just a young man and making such a significant contribution, I think it's extremely important to see the foundation that was provided that would enable someone to go and sacrifice his life for us, so, to lead us into a more egalitarian future, and not ask for anything in return, not a penny in return for himself or his family, but serving God and serving humanity. And I hope that each one of us will understand that, and we will make sure that we invest in our children and we teach them the truth of self-love. It doesn't matter if you're from wherever you're from, wherever you're from, it doesn't matter where you're from, but just understand that we're all brothers and sisters. My mother raised us understanding that we are simply brothers and sisters under the family and fatherhood of God. And that's how we were raised, that it was more importantly to know one's values than to know what makes us different, that we could learn and embrace so much from just coming together and listening to one another. And I hope as the educated adults, all of you all who look like you're a little over 16 years old, that we will make sure that we teach our children and we really invest in them, and that we're honest, and that, we instill these great values in our children. And wait, is that 3:50 now? Okay, 5 minutes? Okay, yes, young man. Yes, I was 2 years old when my father was killed. And, I have to say that a week prior, my mother, our home, there was a little firebomb. And, you look at this woman, his wife, who was in her 20s, and she had 4 babies, and she was pregnant with twins. How was she able to go on? How was she able, to accomplish all that she did? She went, she got her master's, she got her PhD, she, raised 6 girls as the wife of a man who challenged some unjust situations, and she just soared. And I often ask myself, how was she able to do that? I asked my mother, how were you able to do that? She loved her husband. She loved and respected her husband, and she never accepted no or I can't as an answer. She did not live her life as a victim, and so she did some really, really remarkable things. Yes, you beautiful young girl with the pretty pink. Yes, it's you with the pretty pink and the, yes. I wrote 3 books. 3 books, and I know you're going to write one too, yes. How come I read so many words? How come I read so many books? Because if you read a lot of books, you become smart and you're able to answer when people ask you questions. Sometimes it's good to be able to help them and give them answers or give them your insight. And you get that insight from reading books. Yes. My father was, he was killed. Yes. My best memory of my father was like 6'4", a little over 6'4". You know, a lot of people, when I go to these wax museums, I see this little man and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, nothing against short men, of course. But, you know, when someone is 6'4" and 6'5", you know, you want to just like really get the clear perception of who, you know, this, you know, how did he make this great impact and what did he look like? And, you know, I'm such a visionary. My father was a little over 6'4", and, so I just remember looking up at my father, just flickering images I talk about in my book. I remember his big pearly white teeth. He was always smiling. You know, he was just so kind and gentle. And I remember he would call my name Ilyasah, you know. And so my mother said when I was a little girl, you know, people, Ilyasah, Ilyasah. And, you know, I just keep going and I didn't pay attention to anyone. But when I heard my father's voice, Ilyasah, that I'd just stop. You know, and I'd freeze and I'd give my attention to my father. So those great memories, beautiful doll that I had, beautiful brown doll with this long hair. I remember that beautiful doll. I remember my beautiful blue and white rocking chair. I remember my puppets. I remember just so many, something about oh gosh, I can't think right now. But just so many different exciting times. So I thank you very much for coming, and I hope that I see you upstairs? I hope I see you upstairs. Upstairs at 4:30. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.